Part 6. We're officially halfway through the series. But to be honest, is anyone still watching? Is anyone watching, period? If they are, some folks have got a strange idea of entertainment. Welcome back, everybody, to my look at the Friday the 13th franchise. Today, an old friend is brought back in Friday the 13th Part 6, Jason Lives. Part 5 was meant to be the first step in a new direction for the series. The box office returns were modest, but fans were pissed that Jason was not actually in the film and seemingly hated the idea of a killer Tommy. Paramount knew after this miss they had to quickly get the franchise back on track and have Jason return. They decided to bring in Tom McLoughlin to write and direct Part 6 and find a way to resurrect Mr. Voorhees. After sitting down and watching all the previous movies, Tom decided he wanted to do something a little different with his film to make it more special and stand out.
I kind of looked at it and said, well, if we're going to do a sixth one, I feel like I can't do it dead seriously. It just felt like it needed to have some bit of a wink at the whole series. So I tried to say to the producer, Frank Mancuso, can I make this humorous? And he said, well, as long as you don't make fun of Jason, because Jason's got to be fearful. I said, absolutely not. That's part of why it would work, is because we know he's serious, and yet these other characters are sort of treating him like, oh yeah, this was a myth, this was a legend, and they sort of have fun with it.
With a more humorous and self-referential approach, and a supernatural Jason, how does this return work out? Let's find out. The movie opens up with Tommy and his buddy Hawes on their way to Jason's grave. Tommy says that destroying Jason's body may help him with his issues. He's going to see Jason makes it to hell. Right away, we have a completely different Tommy Jarvis portrayal with Tom Matthews, my favorite of the Tommies. He's not a mute and is a more confident person. Throughout, you'll see more of him having an actual personality. So they make it to Jason's grave and dig him up. But seeing the maggot-infested corpse causes Tommy to have a bit of a breakdown, and he goes off stabbing Jason's body repeatedly with a metal spear. Before he can drench Jason in gasoline and light him up, a lightning bolt strikes the spear left in Jason's body and brings him back to life.
I'm back.
Jason rises, and I love how he goes after Tommy here. Always seems like there's no possible way he could have escaped his grasp. The two face each other for a long-awaited reunion, but Hawes tries his best to intervene. This gives Tommy the chance to flee as Jason retrieves his mask and turns for one of the most iconic shots in the franchise, capped off with a crazy reference. This is my favorite opening in the whole damn series. May not say too much since most of the openings are recaps, but I love everything about how this one opens. It's worth the ticket price alone. The mood is set perfectly, almost has that old Universal monster movie feel with two guys going grave digging in the creepy cemetery. Tom McLoughlin has even said that you could watch this movie in black and white and it would totally fit. The way Jason is brought back to life is even a straight up reference to Frankenstein with the lightning bolt. We get the new powerful zombie Jason showing off his strength by punching someone's freaking heart out. Then we get a James Bond reference to reveal the title. They're already poking fun at itself and giving you the best idea of what's to come. And Manfredini's score makes it all wonderfully exciting. Perfect opening. Nothing more I can say. Tommy arrives at the police station and encounters Sheriff Garris, who shows himself to be quite the threatening hard-ass.
You better cool out, boy. You already almost got your head blown off.
Will you listen, damn it?
Don't piss me off, Junior, or I will repaint this office with your brain.
Tommy tells him Jason is alive, but Garris warns him to stop because the town doesn't want to be reminded of the serial killer, which is why they renamed Crystal Lake to Forest Green. He then throws Tommy in a cell for the night to keep him from doing anything crazy. Cut to Darren and Lisbeth, head counselors on their way to the Forest Green campgrounds, but someone is blocking their path.
Darren, we better turn around.
Why?
Because I've seen enough horror movies to know any weirdo wearing a mask is never friendly.
Darren tries to scare Jason with a gun, but he's immediately speared and tossed overhead. Elizabeth tries to escape and even offers Jason money in order to have her life spared.
The American Express card. Don't leave home without it.
The next morning, Sheriff Garris' daughter, Megan, shows up with her friends Paula, Sissy, and Court. They're fellow counselors at Camp Forest Green and want Garris to go looking for Darren and Elizabeth since they never showed up for duties. Tommy warns them that it's possible Jason killed them, sparking Megan to get flirtatious. I guess the thought of a reanimated serial killer offing her friends turns her on. Garris doesn't want Tommy around his town or daughter any longer, so he offers to escort him out. Cut to the cemetery where caretaker Martin sees Jason's open grave with Hawes' foot sticking out and frantically tries to cover it back up.
I'd have to go and dig up Jason. Some folks have a strange idea of entertainment.
At Camp Forest Green, the teens get everything set up, but discuss how their parents told them about how Jason Voorhees is just a legend.
And I can think of only one thing, even more terrifying.
What?
Yes, this is the first time in any of the movies where there are actually kids at the camp. Kinda ups the ante and makes you wonder if it's possible Jason would go after them too. Guess we'll have to wait and see. We are then randomly introduced to a group of business people having a paintball game out in the woods. Luckily, Jason comes across the meanest of the bunch to add to his weaponry and pick them off quickly. The goofy one in the group sees the triple decapitation and gets the bright idea to shoot Jason with his paintball gun. We'll see what happens to the poor dork later, as we cut to Tommy leading Garris on an almost action movie chase to the cemetery until he's finally caught right in front of the covered up grave of Jason. Tommy screams at the caretaker, telling him Hawes is in this grave and he has to dig him up.
Does he think I'm a farthead?
This movie is filled with great editing gags, that one being one of my favorites. The teens are trying to entertain the children, including Court, who's giving them a history lesson on Native Americans.
Look, here's a story. These are called Indian markers, okay? Let's just say you have a chief, right? And he dumps his squaw or his wife or whatever, and he decides, hey, I'm gonna pick up with another one, I'm gonna take off with her.
Just one of the many moments where the humor absolutely works and makes me laugh every time. And fun fact, the actor who plays Court is John Travolta's nephew. Travolta was in the show Welcome Back, Kotter with Ron Palillo, who played Hawes at the beginning of the film.
You just blew my mind.
Night falls and we see a couple, Stephen and Annette, having a moonlit picnic in the forest while caretaker Martin wanders drunk nearby but is taken out with a great moment of irony.
You're gonna be the death of me. Yeah, but what a way to go, huh?
Stephen hears Martin's screams, and there's actually a pretty scary moment as Jason spots him. Jason manages to catch him and Annette before they can leave. Back at camp, Sissy and Paula have to comfort a scared little girl named Nancy who claims she saw a monster outside.
But I dreamed the boogeyman was after me, and he's
Boogeyman! You nailed the window shut! I'll get the gun!
Meanwhile, Court is having sex with Nikki. Fun fact number 2, this is the only film in the franchise with no nudity. Had to get classy after the sleaze in part 5. Jason sees the RV a-rockin' and wonders if he should go a-knockin'. He cuts the power to the RV, prompting Court and Nikki to leave. Court starts driving recklessly and gives us our first Alice Cooper song with Teenage Frankenstein. He's so distracted he doesn't see Jason snuck on board, dragged Nikki into the bathroom, and gave us one of the best kills.
This is great!
We've seen Jason already perform some insane kills with his new power, but being able to smash a girl's face into metal so hard that it makes an imprint, he then sneaks up on Court and stabs him in the head, causing the RV to crash, but Jason is unharmed and standing tall on the burning vehicle. Cut to Sheriff Garris in an argument with Megan back at the station, but they're interrupted when Deputy Rick calls and informs Garris that he found the dead bodies of Darren and Elizabeth. He goes to investigate, leaving Megan in charge at the station. At the same time, Tommy is brushing up on his readings of the occult to find a way to end Jason once and for all. He formulates a plan and calls the station looking for Garris, but gets Megan instead, who offers to help get supplies and give him a ride. Probably for the best he was able to reach Megan instead of the guy who threatened to make him wear his balls as earrings, but it may be too late as Jason finally makes it to the camp in a very funny shot of the brutal killer passing a sign of traits that are the exact opposite of him. He cuts the phone line and approaches the cabin that Sissy and Paula are staying in. Sissy hears a noise and decides to take a look at who's out there.
Surprise, motherfucker!
After cleaning up the bodies of Darren and Lisbeth, Garrus and Rick find the limbs of the dorky paintballer from earlier. This forces Garrus to put up roadblocks, thinking Tommy could be responsible for these deaths. Tommy is with Megan, and after fleeing a roadblock, another high-speed chase ensues, set to another Alice Cooper song, Hard Rock Summer. This is such a wacky yet fun scene to watch. The whole time Megan is forcing Tommy to stay down in her lap, but they unfortunately are caught.
It's gonna be a hairy turn.
Rock all night, gonna blow this town. So morning light, going round and round. Hard rock,
Megan, step out of the car.
Back at the camp, Nancy wakes up Paula holding a huge bloody machete. Nancy was the killer all along. No, she says she found it outside, and Paula returns her back to bed. She tells Nancy when she's scared to say a little prayer, but reassures her that the others are just pulling pranks and that there are no monsters.
See you in the morning.
Love this take of Paula walking down the cabin and Jason keeping pace with her. You're waiting for him to be outside when she reaches the end, but she actually makes it back to her cabin. Seems like she may actually survive, since she's the kindest person in the movie. God damn! We'll eventually get to see the extent of how brutal this was, but Jason showed her no mercy. The most innocent may have gotten it the worst. Over at the station, Garrus locks up Tommy, convinced he murdered all those people. He receives the call about the deaths of Court and Nikki, however, Megan defends Tommy, saying there's no way he could have killed them when he was with her the whole time. He doesn't care, and leaves Deputy Rick in charge to watch his daughter and the suspects. However, Tommy and Megan formulate an escape by tricking Rick and forcing him into the cell.
You better do as she says. Because wherever the red dot goes, you bang.
They make a beeline for Camp Forest Green as Tommy explains his plan to finally take Jason down.
The only way now to stop Jason is to return to his original resting place, where he drowned in 1957.
Or, you know, you could have just left him buried, but who am I to judge? Leaving a dead corpse lie, luring a walking corpse to the bottom of a lake, tomato tomato. At the camp, Jason enters the kids' cabin and everything would have been fine, but freaking Nancy makes Jason aware she's watching him and he slowly closes in while she tries to pray him away. But he hears the arrival of Sheriff Garrus and his deputies and leaves. I remember this scene scaring me as a kid because I always wondered if Jason would actually harm a child. I think Jason somewhat sympathizes with kids being the victim of a drowning at such a young age. As weird as it may sound, he wouldn't harm the innocent. In this scene with Nancy, he just seemed super curious. So Garrus and the deputies split up. The one gets a dart to the head, and the other gets it pretty bad after running into the omen of death, Nancy.
there's a scary man.
What scary man?
Garrus finds Nancy and orders the girls and boys to combine into one cabin and hide under their beds. On his guard, Garrus trips over the body of his deputy, who is looking pretty gnarly. Jason is revealed to be behind him, but for some reason he does absolutely nothing. I've always wondered why Jason didn't immediately attack Garrus here. He could have gotten him while his back was turned, but he gives him time to notice and even back away. It's a weird moment, as if Jason is like, know what, I may be done for the night. I think I've collected enough bodies. Nah, fuck it. Of course, Garrus opens fire multiple times since Jason just keeps getting up. He even manages to get a headshot that leaves a mark in Jason's mask.
All that for a drop of blood.
Garrus gives up and runs into the woods with Jason in hot pursuit. He tries to hide, but Megan, who has finally arrived with Tommy, calls out for her dad, getting the attention of Jason. He shifts his focus to her, but in an act of bravery, Garrus attacks Jason and manages to get a couple of good hits in, but it ultimately isn't enough. I love this moment, not just for the amazing kill, but like I said, Garrus jumps into action when he sees his daughter's life is in danger. It feels like a redemption for him because he's been an extreme hard-ass the entire time and threatened to straight up kill Tommy on multiple occasions. He never has a chance to outright say it, but I always thought the moment he bumped into Jason, he regretted not listening to Tommy. He attempts to fight Jason with literally a stick and a rock, all for the sake of saving his only child. But holy shit, that kill is awesome. It's a bloodless death and works simply for the amazing sound work and effect.
Dug a hole in the ground that I stood in, and then they had an actor, and they took a pair of pants that were just like my pants, and they put the pants on his legs, and he was face down in the hole, and his legs were up behind me.
During all this, Tommy has gotten himself a boat and a boulder to go along with his chains. He speeds out to the middle of the lake just as Jason breaks through the kid's cabin and almost crushes Megan's head, but Tommy is able to stop Jason and bait him into joining him in the lake.
Hey! Asshole! It's me you won't remember? Come on! Come on, chicken shit! Come on, I'm standing here waiting! Come on, you pussy!
The two haven't seen each other since the start of the movie, so I love this final showdown we've been building up to. Tommy sets a ring of fire around them, and the struggle to get the chain around Jason's neck is pretty intense. The fight leads Jason to destroy the boat and take both of them down together. The boulder holds Jason down, but he manages to grab Tommy and drown him. Refusing to believe he's dead, Megan runs out to rescue Tommy, but Jason gets a hold of her leg. Her only solution is to start the motor of the boat and grind that sucker up. Oh my god, that's nasty. Watching the neck snap, then see Jason chunks splurt out. Too good. Megan revives Tommy with CPR on shore, and we seemingly have our happy ending as he declares it's over now that Jason is finally home. But we gotta have that final tease and final Alice Cooper song. My overall thoughts on this movie. Did I say part 4 was my favorite? Cause I meant to say part 6. Nah, seriously, the two constantly fight for my favorite of the series, so I consider them tied for first. Jason Lives is just so much fun. Not the so bad it's good like parts 3 and 5, it's actually well made. This one successfully manages to do something different after 5 movies of relatively the same plot. The humor that Tom McLoughlin wanted to bring works perfectly with the smart self-referential jokes and well-timed editing. It's a horror movie that's somewhat aware of the horror movie tropes and doesn't care. If that sounds similar, it's because it's Scream before Scream. In fact, the screenwriter for Scream, Kevin Williamson, has admitted to Tom McLoughlin that Jason Lives served as a bit of an inspiration for Scream with its meta humor. I'm gushing over the comedy, but in the end, this is a slasher, so the movie was also able to have some scary moments as well. Jason first rising up to grab Tommy always gets me. The shot of Jason noticing Steven in the woods while killing the caretaker freaks me out, and I think a lot of the jump scares work well. The atmosphere is just terrific. Like I said before, it feels like a classic Universal monster movie at times, but then it becomes a comedy, then an action movie. The mesh of genres could be a downfall for some movies, but it works here. Jason, who is played well by former Marine CJ Graham, is ripping through people. Being struck by lightning and becoming zombie Jason gave him that super strength to perform some outlandish kills. Punching out a man's heart, performing a triple decapitation, bending a man in half, and pushing a girl's face through metal. The killer creativity is certainly here. Just to comment again real quick on Jason actor CJ Graham, he did a good job. Not my favorite, but he's intimidating with his strength, and I actually like his new zombie look with the utility belt and new mask. The rest of the cast is pretty likable as well. The teens are pretty funny, not just oblivious and horny. Sheriff Garris is a good foil for Tommy, trying to stop him from spreading his Jason crazy talk. His daughter Megan is so feisty, cute, and cool, but I wouldn't say she's a top tier final girl since she really only quickly fends off Jason once. And this Tommy Jarvis is my favorite thanks to Tom Matthews. He's a determined man on a mission to destroy Jason, but his interactions with Megan bring out his fun side, like during the car chase and jail cell escape. For negatives, I can't say I really have any. Like, I'm not even sure if I have any nitpicks. Every aspect of this movie works so well for me. With excellent writing and directing courtesy of Tom McLoughlin, a badass zombie Jason, out of control kills, and a fun cast, I believe this is the one entry in the franchise that is accessible to everyone. I give Friday the 13th Part 6 Jason Lives 5 strikes of lightning out of 5. But what are your thoughts? Does the new humor here work for you? Or do you prefer a more serious tone? Do you like human Jason or zombie Jason more? And of course, what was your favorite kill? Remember to subscribe and follow my Twitter in the link below. I'll be back next week for Friday the 13th Part 7, The New Blood. Until next time, peace.